today we're making pudding a la mode from Isekai Shokudou. To begin, we're making a simple caramel by combining half a cup or 120 grams of white sugar and 2 tablespoons or 30 ml of water in a small saucepan. Turn the heat onto a medium-high flame and bring your caramel to the boil. Once it comes up to the boil, we're going to continue cooking it for 5 to 8 minutes or until the edges of the caramel begin to turn a light amber. Once it starts to gain colour, you need to keep a very close eye on your caramel as it will develop colour very quickly from this point onwards. While the caramel is cooking, you can give the pan an occasional swirl just to help the caramel colour evenly and prevent any spots from burning. And then once the caramel has reached at least a nice light amber colour similar to honey, you can take it off the heat. Once you've pulled the caramel off the heat, you'll want to carefully but immediately divide it into some oven-safe moulds. After the caramel has been divided, you're going to very carefully rotate the moulds at an angle to completely coat the base of the moulds and also to get the caramel to reach about 1.5 centimeters up the sides. When that has been done to all of your moulds, we're going to place them into a roasting tray that's been lined with a clean tea towel before setting them off to one side so that the caramel can harden. And while that's happening, we can focus on making our creme caramel custard. To start our custard base, we're combining 1 cup or 250 ml of whole milk, half a cup or 125 ml of cream, a third of a cup or 75 grams of white sugar, and half a gram of salt into a medium-sized saucepan. Turn the heat onto medium and stir the mixture until the sugar and salt have completely dissolved. Following that, we're going to bring everything in the pot to a simmer, making sure to stir it occasionally to prevent the milk and cream from scalding on the bottom of the pan. Once you've brought your milk and cream mixture to the simmer and it's all nice and steamy, we're going to turn off the heat and set it off to one side to cool slightly while we shift our focus onto our eggs. We're going to crack 2 large eggs into a large bowl, ensuring not to get any shell in there at all. None whatsoever. Not a single one, Andy. To the whole eggs, we're also separating out 1 extra egg yolk to give our custard some extra richness, and then we're flavouring this with 1.5 teaspoons or 7.5 ml of vanilla extract. Now we're going to simply whisk everything together until the eggs and vanilla are well combined. By the time you finish doing this, your milk mixture should have cooled down slightly, and now we can bring everything together to make a custard. We're going to start this process by tempering our egg yolks. While constantly whisking the eggs, we're going to slowly add in 1 cup's worth of our slightly cooled milk mixture in 3 to 4 additions. Because we're adding the hot milk and cream into our egg yolks very slowly, we're allowing the eggs to gently come up to the same temperature as that hot milk mixture. This will greatly reduce the chances of you scrambling the eggs, which would then result in a lumpy custard. Once the first cup of the milk mixture has been whisked in and the eggs are tempered, we can add the remaining milk mixture while constantly whisking until everything is thoroughly combined. Then to be safe, we're going to strain our custard base into a measuring jug. By doing this, we can catch any little bits of egg that may have scrambled and in general make our lives a little bit easier for the next step. With our custard base now strained into an easy to pour jug, we're going to start filling each of our moulds. Now I bought these new moulds specifically for this video, but I completely forgot that they are way bigger than my old ones, so I only had enough mixture for 3 creme caramels, so we're just going to get rid of this guy and rearrange our moulds so they look a bit more aesthetically pleasing in the tray. Now that our moulds have been filled, we're going to pour some hot water into our roasting tray, taking care not to get any of the water into our moulds until the water level reaches halfway up the sides of our moulds. At this point, we're now going to very carefully transfer the entire tray into an oven that's been preheated to 165 degrees Celsius and let these bake for 30 to 35 minutes. After 35 minutes of baking, the creme caramels have come out of the oven and you can see that they've actually browned a bit on the top. This isn't a big deal in terms of presentation since the creme caramel will be inverted onto a plate, but texturally a small amount of it will be slightly grainy. To prevent this from happening, I suggest using some aluminium foil and placing it over the top of the moulds while they're baking. You'll know that these guys are cooked when you can gently shake the moulds and the center of the creme caramel still has a slight wobble to it like this. Now that these guys are cooked, we're going to transfer them over to a wire rack and allow them to cool down to room temperature. After that, we're covering each of the creme caramels in plastic wrap before placing them into the fridge and allowing them to firm up for a minimum of 12 hours. While you're patiently waiting for your creme caramels to firm up, why don't we make some apple rabbits? To do this, we're going to cut an apple in half before cutting each of those halves into quarters to make 8 even wedges. Then we're removing the cores from each of those wedges and placing the apples into some lightly salted water to prevent the apples from oxidizing. Working with 1 wedge at a time, we're going to make 2 shallow cuts into the skin of the apple to make a V-shaped cut, making sure that the point of the V is facing towards the center of the apple wedge like I'm showing you here. After you've made these 2 cuts into the skin, you want to use a sharp knife and run the blade underneath the skin of the apple and slowly work it along the edge of the apple until it reaches the end of the V where those 2 cuts meet. If your cuts were deep enough, you should be able to remove the centerpiece of the apple, leaving you with 2 apple rabbit ears like this. Make as many of these as you need and then reserve them in some lightly salted water until you're ready to plate. While we're preparing stuff for plating, let's also make a very simple Chantilly whipped cream. Into a bowl, we're adding in 200 ml of cream, about 1 tablespoon or 15 grams of white sugar, and 1 teaspoon or 5 ml of vanilla extract. Using a hand mixer, you want to whisk everything together for a couple of minutes over medium speed until it reaches stiff peaks, meaning that the cream will hold its shape on the whisk without drooping once it's removed from the bowl. Transfer the Chantilly cream into a piping bag lined with a star tip and make sure to really press the cream into the bag to remove any air pockets that could ruin your piping halfway through. Once your piping bag is filled, give your cream a quick test to make sure you're happy with the consistency when it's being piped, and now we can move on to plating our pudding a la mode. Obviously, to start plating our pudding a la mode, we need the star of the show, our Crème Caramel. To get this out, we're going to run a sharp knife along the edges of the mold before placing our serving plate onto the top of the mold and inverting the whole thing over. Give your mold a few solid taps on the top to help loosen things up, and you should hopefully feel the whole thing release, allowing you to remove that mold to reveal that beautiful creme caramel. Next up, we need a big old scoop of ice cream. Feel free to use whatever you want. I'm using some of this homemade vanilla bean ice cream, which you can learn to make by checking out my parfait episode, which was also from Isekai Shokudou. Following that, we're going to pipe rosettes of our Chantilly cream all around the edges of the plate, essentially making a wall of dairy to surround our creme caramel. After that, it's really just about adding some fruit onto the plate. To stay true to the anime, I'll be decorating the plate with some half strawberries, slices of kiwi fruit, one of the apple rabbits, and segments of mandarin. I'm definitely not missing any other fruit on this plate, it's 100% accurate. And here you guys have pudding a la mode from Isekai Shokudou. So from a visual point of view, I think that this dessert turned out incredibly well, but of course, looks don't mean much if the food doesn't taste good, so let's just dive into this. Starting with the creme caramel, is incredibly rich, luscious and creamy in texture. You get the fragrance of vanilla coming through with each spoonful of that sweet set custard, and then you get a hint of that pleasant bitterness from the dark caramel, which creates this loop of sweetness and bitterness that makes you want to go for spoonful after spoonful. The ice cream is also smooth, sweet and packs a great punch of vanilla flavour. Obviously you can serve this with whatever ice cream you want, this is just what I had in the house at the time of filming. Now just before I keep eating this dessert, you are going to see me move the kiwi fruit off of the plate because I am a little bit allergic to them and I really don't feel like pushing my luck today. The fruits on this plate are super important for the dessert. The acidity and the freshness of the fresh fruit really helps to cut through all of that rich dairy on the plate, and it's at this exact moment where I realized I spent $8 on a bag of cherries solely for the purpose of this video, and I completely forgot to put it on the final dish because I am a dumb ass. Putting aside me being an idiot as per usual, this dessert turned out splendidly and I definitely recommend giving it a try for yourself. As always my friends, thanks so much for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed it, let me know by dropping a like down below and let me know in the comments what food from anime and other media you'd like to see in the future. Subscribe to the channel for a new episode every single week, and until then, pull up a chair, unfurl that napkin, and I'll see you in the anime kitchen. Cheers.